Welcome to Ignite Technology, where we create enriching videos and content on technology.
In Python, control flow statements help us add more dynamism to our code. We can repeat a particular task multiple times or make certain decisions based on a condition. Our program will just run from top to bottom if there is no control flow statement. We are just going to have from line 1. After running line 1, we run line 2, we run line 3. But with control flow statements, we can add a bit dynamism. In programming, there are two main control flow statements. We have the loop and we have the conditional statement. The loop with the loop helps us repeat a particular task multiple times or as many times as we want. Then we have the conditional statement. The conditional statement, also known as the if statement, is used to make a particular decision or perform a task based on a decision. It's going to perform a task based on a decision. If if the condition is true, it's going to perform a particular task. So without further delay, let's dive right in and start writing code. First of all, we are going to talk about the if statement, then we are going to go over to loops. I'm in my text editor now. So first of all, as I've said earlier, we're going to talk about if statement. So if statements, as I've explained earlier, help us to kind of make decision or perform a task based on a condition. For example, I want to write a program that compares between two numbers, which of the number is bigger, and it's supposed to tell me if the first number is bigger or if the second number is bigger or if both of them are equal. So to achieve this kind of program, I will have to use something called an if statement. I'm going to write if. Then the condition I'm going to attach to this statement is if num1, the first number, is greater than num2. Then I want it to kind of print num1 is bigger. But if the first number is not bigger, I would want it to tell me that the second number is bigger, something like that. You understand? So that is the concept behind if statement. I don't know if you kind of grasp the full architecture of if statement, but if statements are very useful. We use them to make decision or to attach certain tasks to a particular condition. So let's start writing. So to use the if statement, the first thing we need to get is the if keyword. So we say if. So the next thing we need to add is a condition. So now, as I've explained earlier, we're going to be creating a program that will compare between two numbers. So I'm going to create two variables, num1 and then num2. So I'm going to write an if statement. If num1 is greater than num2, then I'm going to this column I just added now. Whenever a line is ended by a column in Python, the next line is supposed to start with an indentation. The next line is supposed to be indented. Four space you're going to tap on the four or on the space bar 4 times to get the indentation. So if num1 is greater than num2, I want it to print out something to my screen. I want it to print um first number is greater. So so let me save this. So if I should run this, it was printed out to the screen, even though I asked it to print first number is greater. The reason why this first number does not is not being displayed here or being printed out in our console is because this tax is actually attached to this condition. If num1 is actually greater than num2, this particular line will be executed. So let me kind of make num1 greater. So let's kind of see what will actually happen. So now you can get, now we have first number is greater, because now this condition is actually true. So you understand how the if statement work. If a particular condition is true, it's going to perform the task or the action associated with that if statement, or that was asked to be performed. But if it is false, you see we get nothing. To kind of further grasp what is really happening, I am going to come out of the if statement. So remember one thing, that every line that should be under this if statement, every task that will be attached to this if statement has to start with this indentation. It is very important in Python. If you do not add them, you have an error. If you have errors, if you don't add indentation where you're supposed to add indentation, like there will be a lot of errors in your code. So you should watch out for your indentation. Python takes that very very serious. So as I said, every line that starts with an indentation, as far as it's under this if statement, is actually a task that is attached to this if statement. So if I want to come out of this if statement, I will have to come out of the indentation. And then so yeah, I'm going to print program ended, just so we can know when the program ends. So now let me make num2 actually bigger. So now, so we can get exactly what is happening. Now, guys, you see, we didn't print first number is greater, but we actually printed program ends. So you kind of understand the concept behind the if statement. If this condition is not true, then this task that is attached to this condition will not be executed. Well, now we have introduced ourselves to the if statement. Let's kind of explain further, because the if statement is kind of broader than this. So now, as we have here, there can be two possible outcome here. The first number can be bigger, or the second number can be bigger. You get, right? What if the condition that was set is not true? Do we just want the program to run, to keep running without actually doing anything? Most times we want to actually attach like a function, or an alternative action for when our condition is not true. So to add something like an alternative action in case this condition is not true, in case this condition is not satisfied, then we should have an alternative action. To add that, we are going to use the else clause. Else. So we are going to add our column and then enter. Remember what I told you earlier, whenever a line ends with column, the next line must actually start with indentation. So now I will print second number is greater. You get what is happening here? So now let's kind of read this out loud. Maybe you kind of understand better. If num1 is greater than num2, then print first number is greater. Else print second number is greater. So this is one of the most amazing thing about Python. Python is so readable. It's almost like speaking uh normal human tongue, or speaking to another human being. You get the idea. So this is actually the structure behind an if statement, or the idea behind an if statement. We have a condition. If that condition is true, we want to perform an action. But if that condition is not true, let's actually perform the alternative action, the fallback action. This else is serving as a fallback action in case this is not true. The else will be executed. So let's run this right now. Because of first number, the first number is actually lesser, not greater. So we are kind of going with the else. But when the first number is kind of greater, when I print, you see, we go with the first one, which is this. So what if in a scenario where two of the numbers are actually greater? We still go with the else. Now, one thing you understand about the computer is not so smart to kind of, you know, do calculation on its own most times. You have to actually instruct everything you want. Everything you want to be done, every task you want to be performed, you have to actually code it in. So for example, let's say that you are given this instruction. If Ebuka comes, give him the book, else burn the book. Now, if Ebuka comes, you're going to give him the book. But if Ebuka does not come, that means Ebuka is not there. We should burn the book. But what if in a scenario where Ebuka sent somebody in place of him? Now, we as human beings, we can calculate and be like, okay, since Ebuka sent someone, that particular person is representing him. But to the computer, what the computer is expecting is Ebuka. If Ebuka does not come, whether Ebuka sent somebody that is also answering Ebuka, but it's not Ebuka that was specifically instructed, the else will be executed. I don't know if I kind of explained what is happening here. Now you see what is happening. Yeah, I was checking if num one is less than num two. What if num one is actually equal to num two? Because of there is no condition to check for that, the else is going to be executed. As I say, the else is like a fallback action. Once the condition is not met, the else will be executed. So now we have seen a scenario where we can have more than two outcome in a particular two outcome of a particular comparison. For example, where we have this comparison program where we are comparing between two numbers. The first number can be bigger, the second number can be bigger, or both of them can be equal. Now you see we are only checking for when the first number is bigger than the second number. We are not really checking for when the second number is bigger than the first number, or when both of them are actually equal. So in order for us to kind of check for every condition, we need to extend this if statement. To do that, we are going to be using the else if, or rather the elif as Python calls it. So I'm going to say elif. So I'm going to add a condition now. The elif is just like saying else if, then we add another condition. So now I'm going to check if num2 is greater than num1, then I want to print second number is greater. So now we cannot have these two things here. So now we have to have another thing to print out here. So there are only three outcomes for this program. Is either the first number is greater, or the second number is greater, or both of them are equal. So no need of me writing another else if. I can just come here and say both are equal. So if I just save this and run it, so you see I get both are equal. Let me make the first one lesser. I get the second number is greater. Now let me explain what is actually happening here. So once we run our program is going to first check the first condition in the if statement, which is if num1 is greater. Now if num1 is not greater, it's going to move to the second condition, to the second elif. Now we can have as many if as we want. We can extend our if statement to cover as many scenarios as the problem at hand um demand, or as many outcome as we may have, depending on what we are trying to solve. So for this program, there's only two outcome, and we are you can see we are actually checking for both of them. So now, if this first one is not correct, if this first one is not true, it will go to the second one. If the second one is not true, it's going to fall back to the else. So, but only one of these can return true. This and this cannot be true. Once one of it returns true, it's going to move to the next line, because this is not like this is not an if statement, and this is a separate if statement. This is one if statement. All of this is one if statement. This is not an if statement, and this is another if statement. It is one if statement. So once one of them returns true, once one of the condition returns true, the if statement is ended and we move to the next line. You get? But if none of the conditions that we are checking for are true, the else will be executed. As I told you, the else is like a fallback action, an alternative action in case every other condition that have been stated above is false. So that's why you must always add the else, the last. The else is always the last to come in an if statement. Is the ending clause. So after we have our if and elif, as many elif as we want to have, the else is the last clause that comes in the if statement. So now we have successfully write this program that compares between two numbers. But to make this program more fun, what if we actually getting these numbers from the user instead of actually, hard coding it? What if we write a code that can actually our user can be able to make input, and we can compare based on the input that was entered. So we can actually do that by using the input keyword. So say input, and then we are going to put brackets, or rather we'll call it parentheses. Then we're going to add a prompt. So I'm going to say enter first number. Then I'm also going to repeat same thing for my second number. I'm going to say input, enter second number. So I'm going to save this. And when I run this, so you get it's asking me to enter first number. So I can say my first number will be 11. Then I'll enter. Then my second number can be 12. Then when I enter, you can see it is telling me that second number is greater. What if we don't want to print first number, second number, we want to print the actual number. For example, if 7 is greater, I want to say 7 is greater. If 6 is greater, I want to say 6 is greater. So we are going to do something called string concatenation. We are still going to talk about it in the next section when we'll talk about strings and numbers. So, but right now, let's kind of take a short look into string concatenation. String concatenation is the art of pairing up more than one string, kind of adding them up. So that the way I would say A plus A. So so let me kind of concatenate the strings. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to say num1 plus is greater. So I'm going to get num1 is greater. Let me just add this here. I'm going to get num1 is greater. So for here, I'm going to get num2 is greater. So now when I save this, so if I run it, then I enter first number. Let me say I want to enter my first number is going to be 6, and my second number is going to be 3. So I get 6 is greater. you get the concept behind string concatenation. We'll still talk about it because there are different methods of string concatenation, and there are other things we still not need to talk about when we talk about integers, string, floats, and booleans. Okay, let's move to the next section, which is loops. So, as I've explained earlier, loops help us to repeat a particular task as many times as we want. We use loop to uh, make tasks. So we are done with if statements. Let's move over to loops. Loops in Python, they help us to repeat tasks as many times as we want. So for example, let's say you're kind of creating this game. And in this game, there's supposed to something like this space invasion game where we have the enemy falling from the sky, and then you have to keep shooting them before they touch the ground, something like that. You notice one thing: the aliens falling from the sky never ends. They just keep coming. When you kill this one, another one just keep it just keeps reoccurring. They just keep coming, 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 coming. The reason why they keep coming after you kill this one, you still see another one. After shooting this one down, you see another one because of it is in a loop. So the loop will continue going. It will continue going till a particular condition is met. And in this case, the condition is probably till when you get to a particular score, or when one of them actually touches the ground before it is shut down. So without further delay, let's kind of start writing the code for loops. So in Python, there are two major type of loops. We have the while loop and we have the for loop. So first of all, we'll talk about the while loop. So that this will not spoil things for us, I'm going to comment here. I'm going to use the block comment. We talked about it. So this is the block comment. So right now, if I should run this, you see, I should get nothing. So now let's talk about loop. So I'm going to say loop. So now the first loop you're going to talk about is the while loop. The while loop in Python repeats a particular task as far as a stated condition is true. As long as a particular condition is true, the while loop will continue repeating this task, will continue repeating it till that particular condition is false. So to create the while loop, the first thing we need to do is to get the while statement, and then we are going to add a condition. So now we can create a variable. The variable can be condition. I'm going to set it equals to false. So I want it to be a boolean, so I'm going to say false. And then my condition is going to be if the variable condition is equals to true. I'll put my column. Remember what I told you earlier? Whenever a line ends with column in Python, the next line must start with indentation. So the indentation, in case your text editor is not giving you the indentation is just you're going to tap on the space bar 4 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and that is the ideal indentation in Python. So let's continue. So now if the condition is true, why the condition is true rather, I just want it to give to print 1. So let's run this. We are going to run into something called an infinite loop. An infinite loop is a loop that runs forever without stopping. So when I run this, so Okay, actually, we can say the condition is actually not true. So that's why we got nothing here. So if you want this to work, we have to make the condition true. Or better still, we can equally change it here and say right now. So now, because of condition is actually equals to false, so this condition is now true. So I will save this. When I run it, so you see I keep getting one, keep printing one, keep printing one, keep printing one. So let me terminate this. This I'm going to kill this because leaving infinite loop running is not actually a good thing. You can actually crash your RAM with it. So now so we can see how the while loop works. We keep repeating a particular task. It will keep repeating a particular task till a stated condition is false. Now, see this condition here is false, meaning that condition change, like I change condition to to true or something like this. I'm comparing it to true. The loop is going to keep running. So to avoid that, when using a while loop, we have something called an iteration variable. An iteration variable is a variable that keeps track of how many times your loop run, so you can avoid running into an infinite loop. So I'm going to create a variable called count. You can name it anything, but this variable will serve as my iteration variable. So now I'm going to check if count is less than 10. If count is less than 10, I want you to keep printing 1. So if we should run this, the value of count is always going to be 0. So and we'll still run into an infinite loop. So to avoid running into an infinite loop, we need to change the value of count. Whenever the loop runs, we want to add like 1 to the value of count. So to do that, I'm going to use a combination of the arithmetic and um assignment operator like we did in the operator class. So I'm going to say plus equals to 1. So now when I save this, if I should run this, so I get 1. Actually, this is supposed to be 9 times because I'm checking if um if count is less than 10. So let's count this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So now, so that we can, because this is actually tedious, counting this is tedious. Instead of actually printing 1, I'm going to print count so that we can actually, because count is actually keeping track of how many times the loop runs. So count should be exactly equal to the number of times the loop runs. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So as long as count is less than 10, this is always going to keep running. So till count goes above 10, till count goes above 10, it's it's not it's going to keep running. So I can change the condition to whatever I want. But the main thing is that whenever you're working with a while loop, you actually need to have an iteration variable, because if you don't have an iteration variable, you are going to run into an infinite loop. You have to have a variable that will keep track of how many times your loop is running, and you can be able to use it to state how many times you actually want it to run. So that is that for the while loop. So let's go down to the for loop. So now, unlike the while loop, the for loop actually needs to know how many times it will run before it runs. Unlike the while loop keeps running till the particular condition is false. You understand? Like the while loop will keep running and running and running and running till a stated condition is false. Meaning if that condition never become false, it's going to run forever. But a for loop cannot actually run forever. A for loop needs to know I'm going to run this specific amount of time or length of time before I end. You understand? You understand the concept. So for loop mainly is usually used to loop over a collection, something like a list or a string. I explained earlier that a string is actually a collection. It's a collection of character that's enclosed in quotes. So a string is a collection. So things like string, things like lists. So we are still going to talk about collection data types later on in this course. But know that the for loop is mostly used to iterate over um collection data types like list. So now to actually use the for loop, we are going to get the for keyword. So now when we get the for keyword, we are going to get an iteration variable. Now the as I told you, the for loop actually needs to know how many times it's going to run. So the iteration variable is part of the statement. So I'm going to name my iteration variable I, and I'm going to say for I in. So as I said earlier, the for loop is used to iterate over um a collection. So as I told you, string is a collection. So I'm going to make a string. So I'm going to say my name is Emmanuel. So I'm going to add my column. So now I'm going to print I. So I'm going to save this, and when I run it, so we get this now. We get it is iterating over this string. We have we have this. It's the I. What just happened here is that the I now becomes like become like a variable name attached to each of the item in this collection. So let's kind of iterate over numbers as well too. So to iterate over number, as I told you, the for loop is used to iterate over a list or a collection. So I'm going to use the range to create the range keyword to create a collection of numbers. So I'm going to say range, and I'm going to set where I want the number to start and where I want it to end. So I want it to create a range of number from 0 to 100, and I want to iterate over it. So when I save this and if I run it, I should print from 1 to 100. So it's starting from 0. So we get this. So that is how we actually use the for loop. We are still going to talk about the for loop and the while loop in a broader scale when we actually get into collection data types. But for now, this is the for loop and this is the while loop. We've talked about if statements, how to use if statements, how to add conditions in if statements. We've talked about the while loop and the for loop, how to use them to repeat tasks and instructions. So for now, thank you. See you in the next section.